because we're in a bull market.
As we have here, and we're part of it all.
Man, look, guys.
Look like even involved in this.
I wasn't expecting that. So from Bonk.
How easy this is.
Because we're in a bull market.
As we have here, and we're part of it all.
Man, look, guys.
Look like even involved in this.
I wasn't expecting that. So from Bonk.
How easy this is.
Because we're in a bull market.
As we have here, and we're part of it all.
Man, look, guys.
Look like even involved in this.
I wasn't expecting that. So from Bonk.
How easy this is.
Because we're in a bull market.
As we have here, and we're part of it all.
Man, look, guys.
Look like even involved in this.
I wasn't expecting that. So from Bonk.
How easy this is.
Because we're in a bull market.
As we have here, and we're part of it all.
Man, look, guys.
Look like even involved in this.
I wasn't expecting that. So from Bonk.
How easy this is.
Because we're in a bull market.
As we have here, and we're part of it all.
Man, look, guys.
Look like even involved in this.
I wasn't expecting that. So from Bonk. GM, we are live. We are back. John is yelling at somebody. I don't know who he's yelling at. Hopefully he's not yelling at me. Hopefully he's yelling to tell everybody to get on the live stream. And, I don't know, man. Now it looks like I lost him, but it's all right. Look, guys, I'm really, really excited about where we are for today, man. It's been a really, really like seeing Beamable all over the news, seeing Beamables, like just the partnerships, the multi-chain aspect of it, the live ops to all of it. I think like for me has been really, really like, I think this is exactly what we've needed, right? In gaming, we're seeing finally games being able to come to market. We're seeing games getting closer to actually full releases. And I think like there's still many aspects of infrastructure that are missing. And I think that Beamable has been coming in to help solve a lot of the issues. Man, I don't know if everyone's been able to keep track of everything, but yeah, the stuff between the Mint, the Pudgy Party, like Beamable has been super, super active right now. And it's, for me, it makes a lot of sense to be able to find ways to share the vision, share what the roadmap looks like, give us the alpha, right? To find out more about what's happening over at Beamable. And look, we got him, the man, the myth, the legend. Looks like you were yelling at somebody. Hopefully you're yelling at them to come onto the show and tell them, hey, nothing else matters. Make sure they turn this YouTube channel on now. John, how are you doing? How are the vibes over there?
Well, we got a lot going on, so it's a little bit tense. We're gearing up for TGE next month, so we hope, although we haven't announced any real dates yet, but we're hoping. But Q4, we just did the node sale. Probably going to roll out some more nodes, and as everyone knows, we're launching on Solana, so it's all coming together. We've got mainnet coming online for the protocol launch. Too much happening. And yeah, recently you just mentioned some of the games we shipped. We had Pudgy Penguins ship their Pudgy Party game. We've got FIFA Rivals. So lots of really, really good games in Web3, all building on top of the infrastructure.
Yeah. Before we get into it, man, give me like the highlight of the past 6 months for you at Beamable. Like I've seen you at events. I've seen the stuff that's happening on socials, but outside of that, what's been like the real highlight? What's been something that you guys have been like, high-fiving for a massive achievement that maybe hasn't really translated to socials because maybe tech has been so overpowering what it means that sometimes the translations needed more to be explained like a 5-year-old?
So one of the really amazing things that we discovered over the last 6 months was the power of the community that we were building. And honestly, we didn't see all the things that we would be able to do with this community, but it's about 1.2 million people active every month. And they do everything for Beamable. They post, they install games from some of the studios that are publishing on us, and things that really have moved the needle for the game publishers on the network. Like, we originally thought it was more for sort of creating a lot more signal around the TGE and the token and the nodes, and it definitely does that. Like, it's been huge for that. What we didn't see happening is that we'd also be able to utilize this as a community resource to support all of the game developers who are also on the platform. So one of the things that we really are keen to do even after TGE is keep that going, because this doesn't need to just be sort of like the TGE hype cycle and then we're done. We've now built this huge community. So we're trying to figure out a mechanism where the token could be allocated for mindshare development, and developers could apply that within the ecosystem as well, so that they can also gain users that we've built within the community. So, we are fundamentally not a user acquisition platform. We're an infrastructure platform for doing things like social systems and guilds and chat and economic systems, blockchain integration, multiplayer tournaments, all that stuff that you need servers for. We do that in a very comprehensive way. And we've invested like 20 million in R&D on it. But it's really interesting now that we're unlocking a little bit of this community-oriented user acquisition as well, because that's a really powerful flywheel. The more users that can come to the platform playing the games that are on the platform means we drive more usage. The developers themselves are more successful. We all kind of grow together. So that I did not see happening 6 months ago, but it's been like the #1 discovery for us over the last few months.
Yeah, congrats to you all, because that's really cool. Like, you're building infrastructure, but out of infrastructure, more of a need came in. But it also proves to a theory of what you guys are building is very much needed, that there are people looking or interested in learning more about you guys, that has essentially built up this UA platform, almost in the sense that, hey, look, if we have them coming to them, let's lead them to water, right? Take the horse to the water, right? Like, let's make sure they are at least with the playable games, with the games that you guys are working with and everything like that. So shout out to you on all that. Look, you mentioned the token airdrop, the token coming in the next month. You mentioned on Twitter something about some sort of minting some pass right now. Give me the lowdown on what's this pass. Why does everybody need to mint this right now? And what does it mean when the token is live? What is the token going to do to Beamable? How is this going to power the infrastructure for other games? How do you see, what's the ideal marriage for you guys? Like, what's that Beauty and the Beast marriage look like?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So I'll talk about the airdrop ticket. So, the reality of building a community as big as the one we did is there was also a lot of bots and Sybils and all kinds of stuff in there. So we had to develop some systems to just sort of filter it down to, okay, who's real, who's serious. And one of the ways we could do that was the airdrop ticket. So that has acted as a very good filter in terms of who's actually real and in there versus who's just trying to bot the system and gain points. So, we've done that alongside of a lot of other things like actual data analytics and wallet analysis and all kinds of things to try to figure out what's going on. And it's been quite a learning journey on its own, just to make sure that there's real humans in there. But ultimately, out of the millions of signups that have happened, we talk more about the monthly actives than the millions of signups, because we know that there's a lot of chaff in the millions of signups. But the million plus actives per month, we know that they're doing things and participating, and those are the ones who we just want to support with the airdrop and build the community around. And the airdrop ticket is just for that. So it's sort of like the thing that you get to show that you have been an active early member of the community, and that's what's going to unlock some of the BMB token when we launch that soon enough.
The badge of honor. Everybody make sure you go get your badge of honor now. Get over to the Beamable website. Make sure you're involved. You don't want to miss this. I love it. So John, give us the Beauty and the Beast idea of what it does when the token is live. How do we see that integrating with games? How do games see Bestie to work with it? Like, how does that power that economy, and what does it really mean to all of us so that we better understand how do we become evangelist of a marketing arm here to anybody that's watching and says, oh, you know what? You better go head over to Beamable, because not only can they help you with the infrastructure, live ops, guilds, everything that you guys have to offer, but they have a token that could actually help not having to launch your token right away and get ready the proper way, right? Build the game first before we launch the token first.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to relate it back to the earlier conversation around UA and stuff like that. The real thing that we're trying to do with Beamable is build a game development ecosystem. The base level of that is DePIN, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network, where we provision servers. And that's because virtually all games today have some online component. Even if you're not like a heavy duty real-time multiplayer like a Call of Duty type game, there's almost always some kind of online component. So it ranges between the Call of Duties of the world, where you need lots and lots of real-time servers for synchronous behavior, down to it could even just be things like content updates or lightweight social features like leaderboards and things in your game. It's really just depends on whatever is appropriate for your game, but it's Web 2 and Web 3, it's all kinds of games. And what you use the token for is to pay for the servers you've provisioned. So that's the fundamental property of it. It's a utility token for server provisioning where you can pay in the BMB token to get access to servers. And we've tried to open up the ecosystem a lot so that everybody can participate, whether you are someone who knows a lot about Web3 or even Web 2 developers. In fact, most traffic for us is coming from Web 2, which is a good thing because we see DePIN as the way to actually onboard all of these traditional game developers and the mass market into things that are crypto adjacent. But on the supply side, the token powers the supply side. It's what you get paid in when you supply a node, and it's what game studios pay in. Now, if they don't want to pay in the token, they can also pay in a stable coin, and we have mechanisms where that will work as well. But there's a lot of incentives built in to use the native token. That's the fundamental property. You also use it for things like staking on the network, because nodes that are doing important financial transactions just have to be secure, and we have to make sure they're honest, and staking is a good mechanism for that. So that's the base layer with DePIN, where the token is essentially it's the payment instrument for provisioning, and it's a staking mechanism and an incentive mechanism to bring nodes online. But on top of that, it's the ecosystem that we're building that I believe really makes this significant for all forms of game developers over the next few years. Because what you do with the token beyond simply server provisioning is it's also the idea that you can run software on the network, software that could be from a game studio that has a piece that they want to share with others and be able to monetize that R&D investment, all the way through software developers that build everything from commerce systems to analytics functions to AI or ML systems that games happen to need. All of those systems do not have to come from Beamable, and they also do not have to be developed by the game developer themselves. We want to have a community where that software can be part of a marketplace. We've already got 2-3 dozen developers in our marketplace if you go to beamable.com/marketplace, but we're really opening that up and making it so, again, the Beamable token can be used to not only provision servers, but pay any license fees or royalties that the original developer of that code would like to be paid when you use the things that they've contributed. For the game developers that are out there, the comparison I would draw is in the front end world, you have things like Unity or Unreal Engine that help you build the graphics layer, the front end of your game. And within that, you have the Unreal Marketplace, you have the Unity Asset Store, and you can add all these things to your game that add to it. Graphics models, characters, front-end code, things like that. And typically you pay for these things when you go to the Unity Asset Store, for example. Backend world really doesn't have anything quite like that. And that's because the backend world is very different in the sense that it's usually not one-time fees that you pay for backend code, because backend code has to scale. It has to actually run for whatever number of users you've got in your game. If you've got millions of players in your game, then you need the ability to actually deliver backend code for those users that runs at the scale that they need. And then what that means is the payment for that is also proportionate to usage. So we're building that pay for use capability right into the software architecture of the ecosystem itself, so that it's not just server provisioning, it's all the software you need to actually operate your game. And that leads us back finally to this idea of like the user acquisition stuff that we talked about, which can even touch the end users of the platform, the community of the platform. So really, we won't be the exclusive user acquisition mechanism either. Like that's just an example really of what you can do with an ecosystem, which is now that we've got the token that can be used across the whole ecosystem of different software components, including things like user acquisition, we're just going to open it all up so that anybody who has clever ways to drive users into a game can just build on top of the Beamable platform and use the token for that purpose.
Yeah, I think like what to summarize what you just mentioned, what would you say right now with the experience that you've had, with the experience that you've been working with a couple games already I've seen on socials, Pudgy Party and stuff like that. What would you say right now is the best hook to talk to game developers that are almost very much overlooked, right? But almost that you solve immediately, right? It's like, hey, this is something that's almost overlooked with every game developer in Web3, and we're really solving that.
Well, so first of all, Web3 and Web2, for the most part, actually have a lot of the same requirements, right? So Web3, other than certain forms of blockchain integration, such as wallet-based login or having an inventory system that links directly to wallet contents like NFTs or currencies that you might have in your wallet, that's kind of the main things that are blockchain specific. Other than that, a lot of the capabilities are almost identical between Web 2 and Web 3. And that's things like just being able to do server hosting and data persistence and tournaments and leaderboards and social systems like chat. So there's a body of capabilities that's like 99% overlap between Web 2 and Web 3. And then we happen to support some really great Web 3 game developer features as well. I mean, the thing, it's not overlooked, Jorge, but the main thing is just game developers need blockchain integration that's super easy, that doesn't require them to write any code. And we support about 10 chains from a developer standpoint. So Beamable is a DePIN. We always have to kind of draw this distinction. Our DePIN is Solana native. It launches there. The tokens is an SPL token. So that part is all kind of Solana. But if you're a game developer and you're building a game for another chain, we fully support that. So of course we support Solana, but SWI, a whole bunch of EVMs, like it's really whatever people want to do, because we're in the business of supporting game developers wherever they are. So blockchain integration is just so easy and out of the box in us, and it scales, right? So we have games like FIFA Rivals and Pudgy Party. They've got a lot of scale as far as Web3 games are concerned, and the Web3 blockchain integration works really seamlessly there. Beyond that, it's just, you get so much with Beamable just by adding basically one line of code. Right? It's not just the blockchain integration. It's that, like, right out of the box, you'll have login, you'll have analytics, you'll get insights into how your players are actually interacting with the game. That leads you to be able to do notification systems and campaign emails and all kinds of outreach to kind of get the flywheel of activity going within your game. You get that virtually for free, that one line of code when you drop it in. And that just makes things so easy versus having to build a back end or build all kinds of brittle connections between different back end systems in your front end, which is what people often do as well.
Yeah, you mentioned FIFA Rivals and Pudgy, you know, and yes, we've been watching the success of them, right? Millions and millions of users. There's a monetization cycle there, especially on FIFA Rivals. As a FIFA player, I've been diving into it and pouring my money into it. What would you say from these two massive titles that are having a lot of success? Is it something to take back home to share with other games, like, hey, we saw this roadblock, or hey, we saw this success from an infrastructure standpoint, to say, hey, in order to scale up, you really want to make sure this is set up. Anything that is there that is shareable, to say, okay, like, this is why Beamable was their preferred choice. Like, this is where Beamable got to shine with two flagship titles like that.
Yeah, it's really just, we accelerate their development so much. It just comes down to, when you're building on Beamable, all of your attention, energy, money, runway, it gets spent on the thing that matters, which is the gameplay itself. The infrastructure is kind of boring. It's really hard to get right. If you don't build it right, it won't scale, and then you're possibly out of business. So like, there's huge risk that you take on if you try to do it yourself. And fortunately, we have around 100 games that have already launched on the platform that have de-risked that a lot, and hundreds of millions of dollars have flowed through the system already. And that, you know, we operate on 99.9% SLAs. So like, you know, this stuff works and it scales. And Mythical went with that, you know, track record of reliability. So I think it comes down to that. It's that you get to actually spend your time on the thing that will make your game more successful in the market. And one of the, just little anecdote, so we were recently at Gamescom. So Gamescom, basically the biggest, I think it's actually literally the biggest gaming convention in the world, is a big developer piece. We were there with an exhibit in the trade hall, and lo and behold, FIFA came to our booth. Not FIFA Rivals, I mean FIFA, the guys who license FIFA. And they talked to us about the successful launch of FIFA Rivals. And they said that when Mythical told them that they'd get the game done in a year, about a year ago when they got the deal done, they didn't really believe it. They didn't think a game like that could get done so fast. And they were really impressed that it shipped. Now, you got to say, all that credit goes to Mythical. That isn't Beamable. We didn't ship the game. They built the game. They coded it. So that's all on them. I'm not going to take any credit away from them. But what we did is we made it so that all of that time, energy went to great gameplay. And we were just kind of in the background supporting the infrastructure so that didn't add, you know, months and months. Not uncommon for that to add 6, 9, 12 months to your development schedule, because you don't even fully know all of the infrastructure needs until you're so deep in. And then it starts eating away at you, like almost, it's like technical debt or technical tax, as I think of it, where suddenly you're in it for millions of dollars that you didn't know you were going to get into, because you have to support a lot of scaling. You got multiple staff doing DevOps for you. It gets kind of crazy. So we're happy that Mythical was able to really nail it in terms of their deliverables and keeping all their commitments, ultimately shipping a successful game. And we gave them that room to just focus on what matters.
You know, you mentioned Gamescom. I want to circle back to that in just a second, but you know, there's another thing that you mentioned here, is the millions of dollars that are spent in development of the infrastructure. And I'm wondering if there's a percentage out there, if you know of it, of like, you know, all the past Web3 games, that how much they have spent on internal personnel of trying to build infrastructure for blockchain, right? Rather, where that money could have gone to build games, right? Like, I don't know if it exists, but it'd probably be something staggering, because I've worked for a lot of games since 2020, since I came into this space, where I know a lot of, watching runways go into, hey, how do we build the blockchain aspect of it? And then eating away towards game development. And, you know, we still see it. I think it's still happening. What is, do you have that, like, of what that cost, like, because it's a significant savings to say, hey, we should just choose Beamable, right?
Yeah. Well, so actually one of our competitors, they focus more exclusively on Web 2 games, but a competitor called MetaPlay actually did this analysis. And I think those guys are super smart, like we're actually fans of those guys, despite being, I think, friendly competitors. And they did a lot of research on this, and they developed a report where they found that the average game studio at scale, not necessarily just like pre-shipping, but for a scaled out game, is spending about $20 million on infrastructure costs. So you start there with a big picture. Now the blockchain pieces fits within that. Now it doesn't cost 20 million if I want to write a smart contract to integrate an NFT to Solana, for example. That's not even much work. Like probably a blockchain engineer does that in a day or a few days if there's a couple tricky places to integrate to. The issue isn't so much the base level of blockchain integration, it's how it actually works within the overall system. So once you start building that, you discover, okay, now we need an inventory management system, and it needs to also sync up real time with the client state within the game clients in Unity and Unreal or HTML5. So like that's just like a basic example, and I'll spare everybody like the tech lecture for today, but there's just so many little things that you'd have to build just for that. Just to build a good inventory management system is kind of like a multi-person effort for quite a while to do it well, and then you still hope it scales, right? There's a lot of sort of offline asynchronous management, developing it to be non-blocking, monitoring chains to see if they're updated, and making sure that those updates are automatically synchronized with the databases that maintain the player state within game servers. Like it starts to become big, right? Now, a lot of games can build a very subscale game. Like I've seen, and I think we've all seen this in Web3 too, right? Like someone has their little vertical slice demo, and yeah, it works. Like you're running around a map and you're playing and you pick up items and stuff. Doing that for one session of 5-10 people is not the same problem as solving that for hundreds or thousands of concurrent sessions with databases of millions of users. Just the scaling requirements alone are exponentially more complicated, and not just one exponent, like a couple of orders of magnitude more complicated. So you do have to keep these things in mind. It's very costly, but some other metrics just to think about. So Roblox last year spent nearly 40% of their top line on infrastructure, right? So if Roblox is doing that, Roblox is one of the biggest companies out there. They're making billions of dollars or billions of dollars of revenue. They're not quite making billions, but they've got billions of dollars of revenue, lots of users. They're about the biggest thing that exists, maybe short of Minecraft right now. And they're spending 40% on infrastructure. Now they've gotten a little bit better. I think maybe recent quarters, it's down to 27%, something like that. Don't quote me, but you can go look at the quarterly filings and see for yourself. It's all public data, but that'll really tell you, like, if the biggest companies out there with sort of unlimited R&D compared to all of us are spending that kind of money, you're probably not going to spend less than that in your team. In fact, you'll be a lot worse off, because it's not going to just be a percentage of your revenue. It's going to be all that front-loaded capital that you have to put in the beginning before you even have a game with players. Don't do that. Just, for the same reasons as you use a 3D engine and you're not coding 3D tech from the ground up, you should no longer be building back-end systems on your own, because it'll just lead to not building the right thing, and also just introduce a lot of risk and a lot of cost, front and back.
Yeah, I think that's kind of crazy, staggering numbers to talk about Roblox and like how much of that goes into infrastructure. I think that's kind of eye-opening to hear, like to see and know, like, hey man, like this is why these kind of infrastructure platforms like Beamable exist, and why there is a market, and why you need to utilize them, why you need to reach out to them. John, you're doing God's work by being at Gamescom as a Web3 product out there in the middle of all that. But what's been that biggest take for you while you're being out there? Are Web2 game developers being more friendly to Web3? Are Web2 gamers seeing Web3 games and not seeing the blockchain and being, oh, this is just a game. Cool. Let me play it. Oh, okay. There's tech behind it. I really don't care. I just want to play it for fun. Off the Grid was there, Pudgy Penguins. You mentioned the Pudgy Party, FIFA Rivals. All these games that are just fun to play, right? None of the tech is in the front of me, and I don't really care for the tech. I'm just playing for fun, right? And I think we're getting there, right? Anything that your take from being there of, hey, when you meet somebody and they're interested to hear about Beamable, what's your feedback for us?
So we kind of occupy a fairly unique place in that we have Web 2 and Web 3 customers. So Pudgy Party and FIFA Rivals and Off the Grid, not our customer, but like that we can talk about all these games. They are either selling to a Web 3 audience, and they don't necessarily care so much what the quote unquote Web 2 audience says if they're selling to Web 3, or they're selling mass market products where the Web 3 piece is effectively hidden. Like if you go to FIFA, if you download FIFA Rivals from the App Store, you're not seeing a bunch of stuff around blockchain. That comes much later as you've gotten deep in and you want to participate in trading economies and things like that. So I think number one lesson is Web 3 isn't a term that buys you anything outside of the real crypto native audience, and you want to have a product that speaks in the language of a like typical gamer. Now, for us, we're an infrastructure product. We support Web 3 and Web 2, but also the DePIN side of what we're doing is, of course, crypto native. Like the supply side in particular is crypto native. But the way we think about that on the Web 2, the demand side or the customer side of things, is when you download the SDK from Beamable to install to Unity or Unreal, again, you're not thinking about blockchain stuff. Our Web 2 developers don't need to know anything about wallets or blockchain or anything. Like Beamable can just handle that for them. You download the SDK, you build, and you have access to servers that scale up automatically. It's just that the servers that we are able to source from are much more widespread, geographically distributed, and from a multiplicity of providers who are participating on the supply side of the network, which is crypto native, than just betting everything on one centralized provider like an Amazon or an Azure, for example. Both of which, by the way, are supply side partners too. So like we're not even against those guys. They're fine. They're great. They have amazing, huge capacity. You have to pay for it. And sometimes you need to pay for it when suddenly you have 10 million users showing up. But they're all examples of suppliers on the supply side. Demand side, really just critical to speak in the language of the everyday. And I think that is the common theme between what a game can learn that wants to build a Web3 game, yet land a big audience, is make the onboarding process have nothing to do with crypto. And it's the same for us selling to developers. I mean, in terms of the market overall, I think game developers are just struggling generally right now. So people are willing to try anything that works. So I don't think there's quite as much antagonism as there was 2 or 3 years ago. A lot has changed in crypto too, and that like the networks themselves are a lot more proven. You look at Solana, like the transaction costs are super low. The proven volumes are enormous. Like Solana is just in a class into itself relative to like all other chains in terms of actual price, performance, and volume put together. So first of all, you got the performance proven out. You got the costs lower. You've also got a lot of these other concerns people had in the past of like, oh, is this like Bitcoin mining where we're just using a ton of energy just to do all these transactions? That's not an issue with the blockchains we've got today, unless you're, running on like Bitcoin, which nobody's doing. But so, a lot of those issues have kind of gone away. I think the main issue remains that not enough games have gotten to true scale yet. Like we're starting to see some scale. FIFA Rivals, definitely Pudgy Party is getting some great numbers too. Like we're starting to see respectable scale. It's not Call of Duty scale, right? It's not Fortnite scale. We're not there yet. We're a couple orders of magnitude still off from those kind of numbers. But these are good numbers that a lot of developers would be proud of having when they ship their game. And as those games start to have sustainability, they're profitable, they're able to continuously reinvest in content and community and all the things that make games great long-term, then you'll see the growth, and then other game developers will come to it. So, all game developers are struggling though right now. It's just sort of I think that's not a surprise to everybody. Like, it's just a tough business to be in right now because capital has dried up. The players are there. Like, we're actually seeing a little bit of player growth this year, so that's good. So, we just need to see innovative games, great games, stuff that's not a clone of the 19,000 games shipped on Steam last year, and I think things take care of themselves.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a couple of things here, and I think, like, I guess my thing here is from a B2B side of things, and looking at like history itself, where crypto has been from its evolution within the banking systems, right? In 2013, every bank hated crypto. 2025 here today, every single bank offers crypto, right? Like every single one of them. We're seeing, I think, a little bit of that in game development, where game developers and even the bigger titles are very much understanding and looking at Web3. And I think that the issue has been is that there hasn't been a case study for them to use and say, okay, that's how blockchain works, or the marketplace integrates, or hey, we only need this part of the blockchain. We don't need it all. The game doesn't need a token. Great, but it's great to power this marketplace with our token. Any of those conversations that you are really kind of like, you're seeing more of as being at a GamesCon, where there is more consumer, where there is more of that Web2 normie talk, where you're able to say, yes, it's just tech on the back end? Because you mentioned these two games that are very much on Google Play Store, Android Store, where crypto is now being more adopted as well, right? We're starting to see it, right? Off the Grid is on Steam now with crypto components, and it's like, wow, like, okay, well, these are massive things that for a long time got hated on, right? For a long time, had a huge disclaimer on Epic Game Store. It still very much has a nice title on there that, be careful, this is a blockchain NFT game. And it's like, be careful of what, And so it's one of those things where we are getting closer and closer to this light at the end of the tunnel, that there's an acceptance to what is Web3, and there's an acceptance to what technology really means. But from your standpoint at GamesCon, being at Gamescom several years, being at different events as well, Web3, non-Web3 events, what is that really kind of overall feeling or conversation? Do you see that this is moving in the right direction? It's slow, but it's moving.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a broken record on this, but it just comes down to good gameplay, like good games, authentic game efforts that people enjoy playing, kind of fixes all the problems. Because when people run into games that are super rough around the edges and it just seems like a cash grab, or someone's trying to sell them stuff up front for a promise, that's just challenging. And by the way, it's not unique to blockchain games. This whole cycle played out in Kickstarter games as well. Like, Kickstarter was a good place to fund games, and it still is for a couple of games. Like, good friend Raf Koster's got a great game on Kickstarter now that he funded successfully, but it was very far along already. It was like a finished game that he wanted to build the community around using Kickstarter. But like, he had all these Kickstarter games selling stuff up front, pre-sales, and then later you ended up having games just didn't even ship. So people got a sour taste from that. But in blockchain, it was kind of the same thing. You go back 2-3 years, everyone was selling their NFT collections for a game. And the vast majority of those, as we all know, were either outright rug pulls or unintentional rug pulls. Like, people just had no clue what they were really taking on and couldn't deliver these lofty visions that they were presenting, because they found out that you just can't build a $50 million game for $1.5 million that you got from your NFT mint. So as games ship, and they're kind of funded in a way like some of these ones that we just talked about. So like we've talked about a couple of mythical games examples, but also we're working with a lot of developers, Coin Games with Project O, we're working with Warped Games, we're working with Wildcard Alliance. Like, there's a whole bunch of developers on the platform building Web3 games on us. And I've seen those games. A lot of people have been playing them. Some have shipped, of course. These are great games made by experienced teams. And as people see more and more of that, the blockchain stigma, I think, will start to dissipate. But people are good. I think the message, though, to developers is people are going to get a lot more selective. Players will play these games, but they're going to be selective. They're going to want to see games that work. They're going to want to see things that are playable. And frankly, they want to see finished games. Like, there are so many games that you as a player could choose from. You don't really need to sort of back a lot of games way before they've shipped and take that risk. That's why we have publishers. Publishers take that risk in funding games with great teams and making it happen. So that's kind of the part of the cycle we're in. It's gone from expecting players to speculate to now expecting publishers to work closely with developers and ship great games. And then as they come over the finish line, you market and bring people into the game. And if they're a Web3 business model, then it can work. And I think there's a lot of innovation there as well, right? So I think Mythical Games has done really interesting work in terms of, like, there's a little bit of revenue that comes upfront through in-game sales, but then a lot of incremental revenue and growing ARPDAU. So for the non-game developers in the audience, average revenue per daily active users is the way a lot of games think about their revenue. So it's for every user, how much revenue you're making on that user every day. So Mythical Games has this interesting model where it's actually trading revenues in their marketplace that contributes quite a bit of that revenue, and that grows over time. You can look at the previous example, which is NFL Rivals. Their other game that came out well before FIFA Rivals shows that business model playing out, and that's very unique to Web3. Like, that is not a business model that exists, say, in free-to-play games or app store games that you do. So the idea of having an open marketplace where you can capture some of the ongoing trading revenue is a different business model for game developers that actually is fairly aligned with everybody, because if people are trading with each other, it means they like the stuff, they want it, and the revenue from that funds the game developer to continue to make more stuff in the game to keep it a dynamic, active, living world for everybody. So I don't know. It really comes down, Jorge, to
Chicken and egg.
Games have to be good, and you have to have clever game developers who understand how to align good gameplay with a reasonable business model that provides the sustainability and also the ability to scale.
Yeah. Well, John, man, always love chatting with you. Love the alpha. Love the knowledge. Love the the amount of information you pour to us every time on these are so beneficial, and it's so great to be able to share that vision of what you guys are building. Look, give us the last plug. You know, TGE is coming around soon. Make sure you turn the notifications on for Beamable Network. It's a free mint on Magic Eden, correct, for the mint pass, right? So, like, this is no brainer, right?
I think you have to put in something like 0.01 Sol
for the
mint, but
for the mint fee.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Close enough for free, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, what else do you want? Like, come on, guys. We're giving you guys anything more than that. You know, we might as well pay you for minting almost at that point, right, guys? So look, lots of things are happening. Appreciate you coming on. But yeah, any last plugs? Anything that we need to make sure we're aware? And last call, why that partnership right now that's watching this should send you a DM to get on Beamable?
Yeah, well, we're talking to Solana Gaming and the Solana audience. Beamable is a Solana native DePIN. We are supporting all forms of game developers. If you, as part of the Solana audience, what you're excited about is the idea that we're going to onboard a massive number of developers who frankly know nothing about Web3, but are going to drive massive loads across Solana ecosystem. Beamable is accomplishing that, and we're doing it in a way that actually saves people a lot of money, builds an ecosystem, gets them to market faster. And we've got, like I said, roughly 100 games already live. So it's not a promise. It's not an aspiration. It's the reality right now. There's a couple million people every month already playing the games that are launched on the platform. So we'd love people to just come and take a look, keep an eye on what we're doing. TGE is coming right around the corner. So we're really, really eager just to build partnerships with all of the communities, all of the people, all of the tech around Solana, because I think we all kind of win together in the Solana ecosystem.
Love it, John. Appreciate you coming on. Excited for the future. I'll see you at the next event. Maybe it's Token 2049. I don't know. Are you traveling out?
Free after Korea Blockchain Week, and I'll be at Token 2049, and we're hosting an event at Token 2049. So come on by.
Definitely. Always. Thank you, John. Appreciate you coming on, and take care. We'll see you next.
Okay. Take care, Jorge. Thank you.